Hey everyone, it's your resident math comp speaking. Your girl's now an Oxford graduate, or I guess a girl that finished with Oxford because no graduation is still in sight. Thanks to Corona, I haven't actually physically been in Oxford for the last 4 months, and I'm actually starting to miss it a lot. One of the things I miss is being with my friends and doing movie nights. Sadly, we've only been able to organize, 2 Netflix parties? Guys, I know you're watching this Netflix party, you cowards. In any case, I've been missing watching movies with my friends, and one of the things we really love to do is sciencing the movies. Your girl's a math comp. For those that don't know, it's joint honors, math and computer science. For the Americans, I'm double majoring. So given that I'm double the nerd, all of my friends are also pretty nerdy. We've got the mathematicians, computer scientists, me and like this weird gap in between them. We've got physicists, chemists, engineers. Yeah, basically the lot of nerdiness. But that makes for a very fun movie watching experience because there's no scientific mumbo jumbo that manages to slip past us. And every time stunts get a little bit too physics defying, we're always there to call out when a character should be dead. Yeah, turns out that, for example, Tony Stark wouldn't really survive 5 minutes into Iron Man 1. Damn, those backflips, yeah, that's dead right there. But I'm glad that Tony Stark manages to survive all the way up until Endgame, because that gives me a movie scene that I'm going to be commenting on now. This is a scene that I saw in cinema with my friends, and a lot of us cringed because it's a very good example of how not to do movie science. Like, obviously we're undergrads doing science at Oxford, but that doesn't mean that we're experts at anything. But it should still be good if a movie's able to fool undergraduates, right? Not having all of us just cringe at how badly they misuse, especially mathematical terms. I get really angry when math gets misused in movies. So I'm going to be commenting on a scene from Endgame. I hope the fad of no spoilers for Endgame is way over now, since it's been, 2 years now? In any case, I'll be commenting on the scene where Tony invents time travel. I've got a really bad case of resting bitch face, so we'll be going full screen in...
A bit of mild inspiration. I'd like to see if it checks out. So, I'd like to run one last sim before we pack it in for the night. This time in the shape of a Mobius strip. Invert it, please.
Processing.
All right, give me the eigenvalue of that particle factoring in spectral decomp. That'll take a second.
Just a moment.
Okay, that little shit at the end was literally my face whenever my code finally works after so many tries. But other than that, why was he talking about first year math material? I mean, eigenvalues, we learned that in elementary linear algebra. What does that have to do with time travel? Any time travel physicists, please feel free to call me out in the comments. I know basically no physics past Newton. But to give you a quick rundown of what Tony is actually saying, let's go back to the Matrix. Wait, no, wrong Matrix. I'm just talking about the math concept, sadly. Matrices are basically just little tables of numbers that you would use to describe things being moved around in multiple coordinates. I guess in Tony's case, the coordinates would be time and space. You would basically calculate different properties of the little table of numbers, which would give you properties of the movement. So, what property is an eigenvalue, actually? Well, it turns out that most matrices, there's going to be a little list of caveats over here. Most matrices tend to be a stretch in at least one dimension, which basically means that, okay, let me demonstrate. I'm going to take my glasses, which I'm pointedly not wearing for this video, and I'm going to transform them. Whoop! Okay, this was some sort of transformation. We moved them, and for each point on the glasses, I can write a matrix which describes the relationship between its initial position and its final position. It turns out that when we look at this transformation from a particular point of view, it turns out that this transformation is only a rotation. Or it's only a rotation and then a mirroring, which isn't really possible in the real world, but maths tends to believe that things can pass through themselves. In any case, the eigenvalue is a number that corresponds to the direction in which a movement is only a rotation. So if you imagine the axis of rotation is kept stable by our transformation. Some transformations can also stretch in that axis, but it still just stays in the same place. The eigenvalue basically corresponds to how much our transformation stretches this axis. Pretty simple, right? So Tony's just trying to calculate the time stretch or space stretch of whatever's happening in his weird simulation. But then he asks to account for spectral decomp. Oh, this sounds like a fancy science term. Actually, it's basically the thing that you learn right after you learn eigenvalues. Because spectral decomp is basically when you shift your entire viewpoint of the world to the set of axes in which your transformation is only stretches. This makes it really easy to compute things because you just know that, for example, if we've got 3 axes, right hand rule. Got 3 axes, you want to twist them around, and now you know that your transformation is just stretching here, or maybe it's squishing in here and stretching in this direction. And this makes calculations much, much easier. Spectral decomp basically ends up meaning you compute the eigenvalues. So Tony is asking Jarvis to compute the eigenvalues, factoring in computing the eigenvalues. You can see why a lot of us were pretty confused about this. In all honesty, from what I've seen from my physics friends, it would have been much more accurate for Tony to be asking Jarvis to compute different approximations, but to much more detail. Because, okay, so to me, as a mathematician, any function can be approximated and only should be approximated to infinite precision. Physicists, not so much. Engineers, definitely not. But I would guess that when you're thinking about time travel, you want it to be pretty precise. The issue becomes when precision makes calculations very difficult. Usually physicists will tend to assume that a lot of functions only have constants and x terms in their expansion. What Tony could ask Jarvis to do is, okay, Jarvis, expand this function to 100 degrees of precision. That would be pretty impossible for a human to compute, but probably very necessary if you're thinking about time-traveling quantum particles. Sadly, we got intro-level linear algebra instead, which makes me a little bit sad. There is one other scene that both me and my physicist friends really actually enjoyed watching from the Marvel movies, and it's from Thor 1, actually.
Just a magnetic storm, do you?
Look, the lensing around these edges is characteristic of an Einstein-Rosen bridge.
A what?
I thought you were a science major.
Rightio. Here, Jane is talking about how the Bifrost seems to be what she calls an Einstein-Rosen bridge. That's perfectly good science for me. For the past 7 years, I hadn't actually known that an Einstein-Rosen bridge is a real name for a wormhole. I just thought that they invented the term for the movie. Yes, physicists, be angry at me, I guess. But the point is, it just sounded very convincing. Why is that? Because As a mathematician, I'm used to things just being named after whoever proved or invented or discovered them. And the case tends to be that the more names get hyphenated, the more complex a thing is. Of course, there is a certain threshold between Pythagoras' theorem, easy, the Kabatiansky-Levenstein theorem, hard, and Fermat's theorem, very hard. So, ignoring that, to me, a name for an object which is just hyphenated two names seems perfectly reasonable, perfectly scientific. It could be mumbo jumbo, but it sounds pretty accurate. So why don't they try and do the same for Tony inventing time travel? Just pick two random sciencey names and slap them together. Bam, you've got fake science. I honestly don't know why more movies don't do this. Instead, they just open up their college textbooks. In any case, this was my rant for today. I'll try and talk about other movies, both good and bad, next time. And I'm thinking of actually doing something that my friends have been suggesting, which is filming myself doing a drinking game based on The Core. The Core is a cult classic of bad movies, and there's a lot of bad science over there. So hit me up down below in the comments if you want to watch me get drunk and rant about bad physics. Bye bye!